Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into the absolutely incredible life of China's last emperor, Puyi. This is a guy who saw the end of a 2,000-year-old empire, lived through world wars, and saw the birth of a brand new nation from the inside.
So that's really the big question we're asking today. How does someone who is literally considered a god on Earth end up as just a regular guy? His journey is one of the most wild transformations you'll ever hear about, taking him from a golden throne to a puppet's palace to a prison cell, and finally to just a quiet little home in Beijing.
To really get our heads around this, we're going to break his life down into 4 distinct acts. We'll follow the story of a man who was really just a symbol for these huge historical forces he couldn't control, starting with how he even got the job in the first place. Okay, so let's start with his improbable rise to power. You see, he wasn't born into some stable, glorious empire. No, he was put on the throne right at the moment the whole thing was about to come crashing down. Get this, he was just 2 years old. The dying Empress Dowager Cixi basically points at him and says, he's the one. So he's ripped away from his family, brought into the massive, intimidating Forbidden City, and plunked on the dragon throne. He's a pawn in a game he's way too young to even know he's playing. So his official reign under the name Xuantong lasted for a whopping 3 years. That's it. He was the son of heaven, sure, but the world outside his palace walls was changing so fast, nobody inside stood a chance of controlling it. And then boom, the Qing Revolution just sweeps across China, and by 1912, it's all over. The imperial system that had existed for centuries was just gone. There was this brief, almost comical attempt by a warlord to put him back on the throne in 1917, but really, his time as an actual ruler was finished before he was even a teenager. Okay, so what happens to an emperor after he's not the emperor anymore? Well, for Puyi, this really unique agreement meant his life was about to enter its most bizarre phase. He was about to become an emperor without an empire. This agreement basically turned the Forbidden City into a giant, living museum, and Puyi was the main exhibit. He was a king with no subjects, a ruler with no land, living like a historical artifact in what was supposed to be his home. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because you have this clash of worlds happening inside the palace. You've got the imperial tutors drilling him on ancient Chinese classics, and then you've got his Scottish tutor, Reginald Johnston, opening up this window to the West, teaching him about science, culture, and new ideas. And Puyi loved it. He started wearing eyeglasses, which was a big deal. He had telephones installed. And then, and this was truly shocking, he cut off his Manchukuo. You know, that long braided hairstyle that was a symbol of loyalty to the Qing. For an emperor to cut it off, well, the traditionalists at court were absolutely horrified. But this strange, surreal chapter came to a screeching halt. In 1924, a new warlord takes over Beijing, tears up that old agreement, and kicks Puyi out of the Forbidden City. Suddenly, he's an emperor in name only, and now he's homeless. So now he's in exile, living in a Japanese-controlled part of Tianjin, and he's desperate. He wants to restore his dynasty, and that burning desire is going to lead him down the darkest, most controversial path of his entire life. A huge turning point came in 1928. A Republican general looted the sacred Qing tombs, desecrating the graves of Puyi's own ancestors. When the government at the time did pretty much nothing about it, Puyi felt completely betrayed. He started looking for powerful new friends who promised to put him back on a throne. And that's when Imperial Japan, hungry for land, saw their chance. They manufactured an incident to justify invading Manchuria, carved out a new puppet state they called Manchukuo, and offered Puyi the one thing he wanted more than anything, a crown. So yeah, he had the title of emperor again, but let's be clear, his power was a total illusion. He was a figurehead, a puppet. Every single move he made was dictated by the Japanese military. He had his crown, but it came with strings, and those strings led straight back to Tokyo. This second hollow reign lasted right up until the final days of World War II. When the Soviet Red Army came pouring into Manchuria, the Japanese empire collapsed, and Puyi's puppet kingdom came crashing down with it. He was forced to abdicate for the third and final time. But the story doesn't end there, not even close. In fact, you could argue his most profound, most unbelievable transformation was still to come, as he went from the wreckage of one empire to the birth of a new one.
He was captured trying to flee and spent 5 years in Soviet custody. He even testified at the Tokyo war crimes trials against his former Japanese bosses. Then, he was handed over to the new communist government in China, and that's when he began a decade of so-called re-education as a war criminal. He went from being the son of heaven, a living god, to just prisoner number 981. He was forced to write confessions, to renounce who he was, and to learn the most basic life skills he'd never needed before, like how to tie his own shoes or wash his own clothes. And then, after nearly 10 years of this, he was pardoned. The government decided he had been successfully reformed. The emperor was now officially a free citizen of the People's Republic of China.
And this just perfectly captures the final, incredible shift in his life. He spent the rest of his years working as a gardener and later as a historical researcher. He married a regular woman, lived in a small apartment, and even got a voter's certificate, the ultimate symbol of an identity he could have never, ever imagined. When you look back, it's really like he lived 3 completely separate lives, all crammed into one. From emperor to puppet emperor to citizen. Each phase was a total reset, a complete demolition of who he was before.
So what does a life this wild teach us? Well, for one, it shows you the incredible weight of history on just one person. It also screams about the difference between having status and having actual power. But maybe more than anything, it shows that even an identity forged by centuries of tradition can be completely remade by your circumstances. The autobiography he wrote was officially titled From Emperor to Citizen, but you know what Puyi himself called it? My First Half of Life. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. In a life of such radical breaks, at what point, in the gilded cage, on the puppet throne, or in that prison cell, did the second half of his life truly begin?